Hi everyone, and welcome to our educational video on understanding data types and arithmetic in Python. So this video is specially designed for young learners like you. Today we'll explore the basics of Python programming, focusing on data types and arithmetic operations. Let's get started. Before we dive in, let's take a look at our objectives for today. So by the end of this video, you will learn about different data types in Python, understand the importance of using correct data types, use int, float, and round functions, learn how to use assignment statements correctly, perform arithmetic using the BIDMAS rule, and write a program involving input, calculation, and output. It's actually quite exciting, so let's move on. In Python, we often need to get input from the user. This is done using the input function. For example, if we want to ask the user for their name, we can write user_name equals input, then we open our brackets and then type in please enter your name. This line of code will display a prompt and wait for the user to type their name. It's that simple. Let's try another example. Suppose we want to ask the user for their favorite color. We could type in favorite_color equals input, then we open our brackets and write down what is your favorite color. We then type in print to display the following text. So print, open our brackets, your favorite color is plus favorite_color. And then we close our bracket. This code will prompt the user to enter their favorite color and then print it out. Now, as I go through this video, it's always quite helpful to pause it at a stage where you feel you might need to try some of this out. Now, we might be using the idle as a program to run our code, write our code. It might be worthwhile to have the idle open in script mode and practice some of these bits of code as I'm going through the video. Next, let's talk about concatenating text. Concatenation means joining two strings together using the plus operator. So for example, if we had a variable where we said age equals 15, and then we use a print function, so print, then we open our bracket and said Alex and Jamie are, with a plus symbol, str, which is short for string, then we open our brackets and we put age plus years old. This will print Alex and Jamie are 15 years old. Now remember to convert numbers to strings using str when concatenating with text. Now numbers are usually integers and strings are usually alphanumeric text, but we'll cover that in a little bit more detail as we go on through this lesson. So here's another example then. Let's say we want to create a greeting message. We could try something like first_name equals Taylor, last_name equals Swift. Full_name equals whatever the user typed in as their first name, which was Taylor, plus, and then the reason why we do a speech mark there with a space in between is that it will leave a space between the first name and the surname. So we do the speech mark, then we close the speech mark, and then we do the plus symbol, and then last_name. We can then, lastly, type in print, open our brackets, and do hello plus full name. This code will print hello Taylor Swift. Now I will strongly encourage you to write these bits of code out as you are watching this video. It will make so much sense as you are doing this. So moving on, let's look at data types. Now Python actually has a lot of different data types that it uses. This helps Python understand what type of data we are working with. So for example, if we wanted to type in someone's age, an example of that might be the age 15. Now the data type here is an integer. An integer is a whole number. Now if we were to write this in Python, we would write it as int, open bracket, and then age, and then we close our bracket. If we wanted to make reference to someone's shoe size, it might be 7.5 or 7.5. Now because it uses a decimal point, in normal mathematical terms, we will call that a decimal number, but in computing, we call it a float. So as a code for Python, we will type in float, open our brackets, shoe underscore size, and then we close our brackets. Now this tells Python that the figure or the number that it's working with is a decimal or a float number. We then look at price. So an example of price might be $19.99. Again, it has a decimal place, so it's a float. And then we do float, open our brackets and type in price, and we close our brackets. For postcode, now this one's a bit, sometimes people get a little bit confused with this because it uses letters as well as numbers, but this is actually a string. Now a string is alphanumeric, meaning that it can have a combination of letters and numbers, but Python knows that it's not just numbers, so it's not going to try to perform some sort of calculation with that number. So for postcode, we can do str, we can open our brackets and type in postcode, then we can close our brackets. Height, again, it's a float. Quantity in stock, that's an integer. Now the reason why that's an integer is that if we had 15 of a particular item in stock, every time a customer buys that item, we would have to deduct one from the quantity in stock. So if we started off with 15, a customer bought one product, we would minus one, so we would now have 14 in stock. Moving on swiftly to the telephone number. Now again, a telephone number is not a number that we perform calculations on. So we would actually use the data type string for a telephone number, which is again alphanumeric. So Python has several data types, as we've seen, that we use to store different kinds of information. Now again, just to summarize and recap, these include string, which holds text and data like hello. Integer holds whole numbers like 42. Float holds decimal numbers like 3.14. Boolean is another data type which holds true or false values. So understanding these data types is crucial for writing effective programs. Let's look at some examples. If we take name equals Alice, that's a string because it's a name. Age equals 14, that's an integer. Height equals 5.4, we've got a decimal place there, so that's a float. Is student equals true, that's going to be a Boolean. Now if someone wasn't a student, we could say false. So this actually has a true or false output. So in this example, we have string, an integer, a float, and a Boolean. Python automatically assigns a data type to a variable based on its value. However, we can manually define or change the data type using something called casting functions, like str, opening our brackets, indicating that it's a string, int, opening and closing our brackets to indicate that's an integer, and float, again opening and closing our brackets to indicate it's a decimal number. So for example, height equals 5.4, height underscore string equals string, open brackets with height inside it, closing our brackets. This will convert a float number where we said the height is 5.4 to a string. If we take score, which equals 85, and type something like score underscore int equals int, open brackets, and score within it, this will convert the string, which is alphanumeric, into integer. Now, when we convert it to an integer, it will allow us to add other numbers to it. It will allow us to perform calculations on it. So this is useful when we need to ensure a variable is of a specific type. Let's see another example. If we take price, for example, where we said price equals 19.99, we might write the following bit of code where it says price underscore float equals float, and open our brackets and typed in price. This will convert string to float. And then we can do print, open bracket, price underscore float, and close our brackets. This code will convert the string 19.99 to a float and print it. Now again, this will make a lot more sense if you were to type this as you kind of go along. So have a go. Maybe pause the video and have a go at the past few examples that we have looked at on some of the slides here. Choosing the correct data type is important for accurate calculations and operations. If we have a look at the example, using the right data, such as age equals 15, which is an integer, and temperature equals 36.6, which is a float number, the right data helps prevent errors and makes our code more efficient. Let's consider another example. If we take quantity, for example, where we had 10, so quantity equals 10, total underscore cost equals 5.99, multiplied by, so the asterisk symbol there is multiplied by int, which is integer, and then within our brackets we write quantity. So at the moment the quantity is 10, so 599 times quantity, so 5 times 10, this would convert the string to integer for multiplication. So as we mentioned before, if you were to perform calculations on integers, there will always have to be an integer. You can't perform calculations on strings or any other type of value. So we can then go on to type print, then opening our brackets, total cost plus string, open bracket, and then close our brackets, total cost. Now at the end of the line there, you can see that we're closing two brackets there. That's because after the print, we've opened one, and then before the total, we've opened another. So they both need to be closed. Now again, write this program out and give this a go. So ultimately with this example, what we see is that this code converts the string 10 to an integer and multiplies it by 5.99 to get the total cost. So if the cost of one item was $5.99, it will multiply it by 10 to give us what the total cost of that or of those items are. Moving on to assignment statements, these are used to assign a value to a variable. If the variable doesn't already exist, it's created. So for example, full name equals Sam Lee. number of apples equals 5, these statements create variables and assign values to them. Let's see another example. If we currently don't have a variable called city, we can just create one just by typing city equals London. So it will store the value London in a variable called city. So we can create another variable which will be population, and then we can assign a population number to that variable. We could then print the population of, for example, the city, which has London stored in it, is, and then the population value. So this code assigns the city name and population to variables and prints them. Now let's talk about the BIDMAS rule. BIDMAS stands for brackets, indices, division, and multiplication, followed by addition and subtraction. It defines the order of operations in arithmetic calculations. For example, we could say result equals 2 plus 3 multiplied by 4. So 2 plus 3 is obviously in brackets multiplied by 4. So here the addition inside the brackets is performed first, followed by the multiplication. Let's have a look at another example. So if we take calculation, for example, and say calculation equals 10 plus 2 multiplied by 3 minus 4 divided by 2, and then print the calculation. In this example, multiplication and division are performed before addition and subtraction. Python supports various arithmetic operators. Let's look at some examples. We have addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, floor division, and modulus. Now, modulus is probably something that you're wondering, well, what is that? It's basically the remainder of something. So these operators help us perform different arithmetic operations in our programs. So now we're going to get coding. So let's create a program to calculate how many hours per week you sleep. Here is a complete example. Now you must pause the video and analyze the code for a few minutes. What do you think this program is doing? Pause the video, have a look at the code, and then have a think about what you think that this program is doing. Okay, so you should have, after looking at the code, what you should have been able to realize is that this program calculates your sleep hours per week and month and rounds the monthly hours to the nearest whole number. So let's break it down. First, we ask the user for the number of hours they sleep per night. We then calculate the total hours per week by multiplying by 7. Next, we calculate the total hours per month by multiplying by 4.35. This is the average weeks per month. Finally, we round the monthly hours to the nearest whole number and print it. Now, what you should be doing is evidencing that you have written this code and you've run the program in idle or any other program of your choice. What I would like you to do is now pause the video and copy this program out exactly as you see it. Once you have copied this program in Python, you can run the program and start entering values that are relevant to you. So pause the video and have a go. Finally, let's finish off by displaying a title for your program when it first runs. You can also calculate the number of days per year spent asleep and include the user's name to make it more user-friendly. This makes your program more interactive and engaging. Now, if you have finished writing the program above, you may want to consider this as an extension task. So that's it for today's lesson then. I hope you enjoyed learning about data types in arithmetic. It becomes so much easier if you have been practicing this as we have gone through the video. If you haven't, please make sure you go back, pause the video, and copy the code as where I've suggested you should do. But again, don't forget to practice writing your own programs and experimenting with different data types and operations. Thanks for watching and happy coding.